Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention. Maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. Hey everyone, how's it going? We're back with another installment of Voice of Gord. Today's episode's another one of these I recorded many months ago. I had a chat with this gentleman on March 5th, and I'm finally getting the bastard out the door. My apologies to my guest, Mr. Benjamin McCulley, and to all of you for not getting this to you sooner. However, in my defense, Mr. McCulley is an author, and he wrote a really interesting book, which has become his online social media handle, which is Truck Driver, Read When Safe. And I recently availed myself of that book, the Audible version, and it's quite good. It's sort of parody, satire, and advice, and, just telling the story of what it's like to be a trucker. It's pretty good. I think it's well worth a read. You should head on over to Audible and download it. I'll have some links for you in the show notes. As far as our conversation goes, Ben tells me his life story, which includes a stint in the military serving in Somalia, as a manager for some kind of sanitation and janitorial outfit, and eventually getting himself behind the wheel, and all of his sort of somewhat philosophical approaches to, life of a truck driver. He's a pretty thoughtful guy. I thought this was a great conversation. Again, my apologies for taking so long to get it out. My regular listeners will know I've been pretty busy with this Coots thing out in Alberta. Verdict for that trial should be coming down soon. So if you're following me on social media or on Substack, you'll get to hear all about that very soon. All right, well, I won't hold you up any longer. Let's get to Truck Driver, Read When Safe. All right, g'day everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Voice of Gord. I'm Gord. This is my voice. The other voice you're about to hear, I don't know a whole lot about this gentleman. Bumped into him online. He quote tweeted something I said with some interesting commentary, and turns out he's written a book and he sells hats, much like our good buddy Reed from the Please Advise Lost Freight crew. So without any further ado or introduction, because I don't know, please welcome to the show Mr. Ben McCulley.
Thank you, Gord. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, pleasure. So what I can gather is that you're in Central Time Zone. You make pretty cool hats. You make these little short vignette videos that you post on Twitter that are like combinations of tunes and artwork and logos from the trucking business. And I haven't been able to figure out what's going on, and I'm glad you're here to tell me and anybody else that's listening what you're all about.
Sure. Yeah, it could be a psyop. I could be a CIA plant.
I have to deal with people who believe I am that since coming back to Twitter for the 5th time and having the great pleasure and honor of being invited on Tucker Carlson's program. A lot of people were like, who's this guy? And he's either a Fed, or he's not really a truck driver, or he's wearing too much plaid, or he's not actually Canadian. He's dressed too Canadian to actually be Canadian. It must be an op. There's a certain, conspiracy theory damaged mental culture out there now, just from people that are just terminally online and have lost the ability to accept things and people at face value anymore.
You're not
Um,
lying.
and like I said, I'll talk to anyone for the most part. Your Twitter presence, I just found it very interesting, like the little things you're doing. And apparently you drive truck too. So please fill us in.
Yeah. So I wrote a book that it's antithetical to the trucking industry, I guess you could say. It's about getting freedom, achieving freedom through a truck, driving a big Class 8 truck. And I start off with this metaphor of this fisherman who is he's just a poor fisherman on the beach with his fishing pole, and this businessman comes up to him and he's like, why aren't you working and trying to provide for your family? And the fisherman's like, well, what's my reward? And the businessman's like, well, you could, buy a boat and catch more fish. And the fisherman's like, what's my reward? And the businessman's like, well, you could, hire a bunch of fishermen for you and sail the oceans and fish even more. And the fisherman's like, okay, what's my reward? And he's like, getting upset. And he's like, well, you could spend all your days just lounging around on the beach doing what you love. And he's like, well, what do you think I'm doing? So that's what the whole book is about. And it's not about hiring a bunch of people. It's not about buying a bunch of trucks. It's a very unique message for just a few people that want to achieve freedom. And I provide a general idea of how you need to master your craft. You need to get good at stuff. And Scott Adams has a term called talent stack. And I applied that to trucking and I called it pallet stack. And you need to get these pallet stacks and get good at the craft. Um, and the sad part is to get good at stuff, to get better and better and better. Like these little stupid vignette X posts that I do, it's you're practicing and getting good at this media and that media. It's the same with trucking. Uh, you need to get, so good that you don't really have to work anymore. And that's kind of what the whole book is about.
Right. And the book also called Read When Safe?
So I published a book called Truck Driver. Like that space was out there and I grabbed it. Are there other books called Truck Driver? I don't know, but the subtitle is Read When Safe. And that comes from, you know, when you're driving and brokers or whoever sends you a message, my automatic reply is read when safe, or replies will be read when safe. And so that's one reason. It's almost the opposite of please advise. So the broker tells you, please advise. And I say, read when safe. Like, I don't even know what your message is, and I don't even care what it is. Because I'm driving down the road and I'm a driver and I'm driving.
That's a
The
correct.
other
That's a good response.
the other thing is it's 3 syllables, read when safe. So it can catch. And I mean, this all came about in September out of my head. The domain was available. All the ats on all social media was available. Read when safe. So it plays a few different roles. But yeah, truck driver, read when safe. The audiobook. So there's a nice published edition of it, but the audiobook on Audible is the best way to listen to it. And it's designed for truck drivers. It's not 15 hours. It's not like, Oh, you need to get your CDL. Oh, this is what IFTA stands for. No, it's like this is how you shit in a bag. You'll love it. When you read the book, you're gonna love it. But it's specific driver oriented stuff. And the audiobook, I paid this guy who sounds like Optimus Prime to read it.
Amazing. You sound a little bit, so I'm picking up a certain vibe from you here, sir. There's a gentleman also on Twitter, and he writes very lengthy screeds over on Substack. His real name is Andy. He goes by the handle Shag Bar Hick. I'm going to send this to him. I'm going to make sure he listens to it. G'day, Andy. And Andy spent like 5 years of his life hitchhiking. He's been on my show twice, once by himself, and then once in a roundtable talking about hitchhiking, train jumping, and travel and rough.
Wow.
And Andy often speaks about the sort of like the sort of freedom available if you want to like adapt your life and live cheap. And he gets a lot of guff for it online, right? Like, if you want to, I found a house for sale on some website in North Dakota for $15,000. You could go live there.
Yeah.
That's cheap. If you want to be like me and eat lentils and rice most of the time and keep your costs low, you can live where I do, or I bought my house for 40,000 and I'm not living in a suburb somewhere in a $500,000 McMansion. He's like, there's things you can do and ways to live cheap. And he sort of infuses that with this, oddball philosophy. I don't want to say oddball, but like he's just a very outside the box thinker, and you can tell he's spent a lot of time by himself contending with his thoughts. Everything is very extremely well written. He's an very interesting guy to listen to. If you haven't yet, go back and listen to both episodes, Adirondack Supremacy, and then the other one's the sort of Vagabond Roundtable.
Yeah,
And
let me write this down.
yeah, or I can send you the links after it. I'll put them in the show notes when this one comes out too. Anyway,
Yeah, it does sound like me.
I'm picking up a little like outside the box thinking, and like looking at everything around the actual thing. Like, so here's the subject, but here's all the stuff behind it, around it, beneath it, and things you're not thinking about because you're focused on this subject, but there's other things that are totally related that are just, unless you're looking at the whole picture, you would almost think they don't belong.
Yeah. Yeah, it's graduate level trucking info.
Oh
Somebody has
man.
to write it.
Sure.
It's
I'm
graduate level trucking info. Like there's the like 1 to 5 year like this is how you do it, this is how you handle being lonely on the road. This is so I'm this is for like 10 plus year. And before Christmas I made a stupid video. A lot of reasons why I make these stupid videos is to express freedom. They're just ridiculously stupid videos. But this one was by a fireplace, and I said, you know, I wish I could give you this fireplace here in my home in this evening. It's wonderful, but um, it took about 5 years to make. I had to find the tree. I had to cut the tree down. I had to split the wood. I had to stack the wood. I had to season it for about 2 years. And then I had to bring it inside. I had to make the fire, and then I had to have the masterful wherewithal to stop the world and enjoy the fire. So it took about 5 years to make this fire, and I can't give you the fire tonight, but I can point to where the tree is and get you it going in the right direction. And that's what the book is. The book is for people that are like, okay, I'm stuck in a class 8 until I'm dead. What am I going to do? And I'm pointing them in the right direction to where they won't be like, oh, I'm so lonely. I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, so I picking up what you're putting down.
Can
Like,
we not cuss?
no, you can cuss, I don't care. You can point at a tree and say, there's your nice cozy campfire in 5 years, right? And you sort of have to think, well, what do you mean about the tree? Oh yeah, well, there's wood in it and preparation and all this stuff, right? So there's all these sort of like meaning and roadmap and instructions imbued in a shorthand. It's almost like, rhetorical or written like tweets almost.
Yeah, yeah, it's and it's only a few will pick it up. I mean, it's I started writing the book because I was in Hawaii. It's a long story, and I was trying to I was with family, and I was pronounced Hostler, hustler. You know, yard jockey, Hostler, hustler,
Hostler.
hostler. Okay, so I was hostler. I had a hostler gig for 2 weeks that paid so much freaking money that I paid it forward. Well, there were freaking 12-hour shifts, so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I wrote the rest of the book there, and yeah, I wrote the book, and I had all this time to write. I forgot what I was talking about, but and I
Making a
that job.
fire. Making a fire.
Okay. Oh, so it was I wasn't expecting anybody to uh I wasn't expecting this to have mass acceptance because it's against like, you know, it's not I was tipping the hat. So this is like a passion project that kind of took off more than I was expecting. And I was tipping my hat to a large section of the trucking industry that isn't represented almost anywhere. It's not even considered trucking almost.
In what
And that's
way? In what
the
way?
local day cab.
Right. Yeah. The final mile or the first mile guys. Yeah. We're sort of the long haul guys either disrespect us or are jealous because we get to go home. And we're sort of an afterthought in the mind's eye of the public, even though we do quite a bit of the work. Not everything is going from coast to coast, right?
Exactly. So the tree is that local day cab, according to me and my book. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just my opinion. And so I was trying to represent, trying to, provide a guide to people that are going to be in a class 8 until they're dead, like me.
Right. Well, you don't strike me as anywhere near that yet. Dare I ask your age, sir?
42. No, wait, 41.
Okay. And so, how long have you been trucking for? And tell us a little bit about Ben before we get too deep into the book and your various artistic endeavors on Twitter.
Sure. So I'm from Missouri, born south of St. Louis, kind of grew up on the Mississippi River. I've never been on a boat in the Mississippi, but I've been right next to the Mississippi. And I was always a traveling kid, not like I had rich parents and traveled to Europe. I'm talking like I would find a creek and walk down the creek bed until it got dark and then turn around. Always a traveling lone wolf. I got to my working years, went to college and dropped out and went to try to make it on my own in Florida, and it didn't go so well. One good thing is I uh, started reading books like Plato's Republic, and I found peers in authors of the past, and it was very enlightening. And sometimes it's dangerous to be so enlightened so young. But I had to pay the bills, so I joined the army and went to basic training in Georgia, and then I got stationed in Washington, D.C., and I got deployed to Somalia and Ethiopia and Kenya, and that was enlightening.
What were
They
you what were you up to? Is this part of like CENTCOM dodgy business in Africa or what?
Yeah. So I was 11 Bravo infantry grunt, but I got stationed at this where you got to be over 6 foot tall and you got to be super smart. It's called the Third Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. We're stationed in Fort Myer, Virginia, which is the same thing as Arlington National Cemetery. Echo Company is the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Have you heard of that?
I have.
So I was in that infantry group, and we didn't get deployed too much, and so we got deployed to what was supposed to be kind of just a cheesy gig in Africa, and it was like I was never in a firefight. I never did any hardcore fighting, but in Djibouti, Camp Lemonnier is where most of us were garrison, I guess you could call it. And there was, that's right where all the supply chain issues are in the Red Sea right now. Like we've been there forever. But we were going to Ethiopia. We were training the Ethiopian army how to do infantry stuff, and it was ridiculous. But Somalia and Kenya, the Navy SEALs would they were going out. There was the deck of cards of all the terrorists from 9/11, and they were going. There's different terrorists on different islands off Somalia, and the Navy SEALs would go and do their thing. And when they would come back to base, they would sleep and be you know safe and comfortable. And our job was to protect that little area in southern Somalia. And then there was also we were on the USS Wasp, which was a Navy ship with Marine expeditionary unit on there with the LCAX, this huge inflatable amphibious vehicle. And there was this like joint task force, and my team never got to go, but we'd go land on these ships, and that the Yemenis people were taking all their AKs, and we the pirates and all that stuff. So it was we did a lot in a year. But the one bad thing is we had to take this anti-malarial drug called mefloquine, and I think it screwed me up a little bit, which I'll explain further. But if you want to learn more about that, there's a guy you can interview, that a battle buddy of mine.
Right. This is despite being accused of being an anti-vaxxer by a guest who bailed on me 24 hours before a planned recording about autonomous trucks. I yeah, I typically don't. I try and stay in my lane, eh? I am a trucker after all, and it's better if you stay in your lane, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear you. This mefloquine, I think it did something. A lot of some of my battle buddies are getting disability, or I don't know what it's called. They're getting stuff they're getting money from the government for how much it screwed them up. I never did any of that because I have been running running my whole life. But now that I'm older and I can look back, I think it might have screwed me up more than I thought. Because when we got back to the United States, uh, like I went crazy. I did a bunch of uh, cocaine and missed formation, and I got kicked out of the army.
Oof.
Yeah, I dropped out of college, got kicked out of the army. My family's not rich.
Well, sometimes you just got to roll with it. Um, this mefloquine stuff. So, like, are you implying that the effect of it is psychological in nature?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're as soon as the doc gives it to you and they watch you take the pill, you're forced to take this pill. You know, everybody has insane dreams. Some of the guys in the village in Afghanistan, I think they like murdered a whole family while he was sleeping. And they're all hopped up on this weird malaria drug. Um,
Hold on a minute. So you're taking, they make guys going to Afghanistan take a malaria drug in a country that's pretty dry. I don't square this circle for me. Is there actually malaria in Afghanistan, or are they just effing around?
No, I don't know if the Afghanistan guy was taking mefloquine.
No,
He was
the military is forcing you guys to take it when you're deploying to a country that's dry.
yeah, yeah, uh-huh.
Oh man, how strange! How
Yeah, I mean,
strange.
I pulled out of it though. I mean, I've pulled out of a lot of things my whole life, and I met a girl in Washington D.C. who was from Wisconsin, and the first squad team leader was from Wisconsin, and he's like strongest, smartest, most fit man I've ever known. And I was like, well, there must be good people in Wisconsin. So we moved to Wisconsin and started a little family, and I got into managing real estate, and I uh, I got into those working mid-manager years of managing millions of square feet of real estate. It started out with apartments, and then I got hired on by a company that was doing uh, Jan San and building maintenance for so much. It was mind blowing. School districts, police stations, performance arts, like 6 million square feet. And I had a $50,000 payroll every 2 weeks that I had to pay out to employees. And I had to keep track of all these people. And I was on call always. And I learned that that's a good way to destroy a marriage and to burn yourself out. And that's not life. So, when I hear people, hustle, yeah, hustle this. And if you're using that moniker, I'm not raining on you. I'm just saying in my older years, sometimes you don't need to hustle. Sometimes you need to just stop and smell the roses.
Yeah, I'm at a stop and smell the roses point in my life. I've been off trucking since July. I was laid off from my last job, and given what a sort of crap show the industry is in and how it's infested with bad actors, nobody cares. Too many middle managers. They never deregulated the trucking business. They just transferred the regulation from the C suite to the driver's seat, and the wages haven't kept up with inflation or anything, and the trucks are all junk, and they're fast turning them into driving themselves, or at least partway there. And I'm like, you know what? I live in a place where it's a far drive to get a decent job anyway, because I kind of live in the small town in upstate New York, and you know what? I'm just gonna hang out with my kids and do part-time work doing other things for a little while, and I'll go back on the road at some point. But yeah, hustling's fun, hustling's good. There's a time for hustling, and then there's a time for not hustling, right? And
Right.
one of the things about your video I thought was sort of deep in its simplicity was you were pointing out the sort of blank spaces in the Eaton symbol on this hat,
Hell
and
yeah.
you were talking about the do and the not do, and the choices we make, the choices we don't make. The sort of the implied discrimination by choosing, right? The action, the inaction. And I want to share a quote with you. I've just become aware of from a philosopher who's not my cup of tea, but like who's sort of central to the Enlightenment project. A fellow named Jean-Jacques Rousseau,
Hmm.
and I quote: "I have never believed that man's freedom consisted in doing what he wants, but rather in never doing what he does not want to do." End quote.
Amen. And you know what? That is what autonomous truckers do.
Right. Thank you for
I
referencing
love
my
that.
Substack.
I love that name. It's so on point because it goes to autonomous agency. Yes, that's what we are. But then it says autonomous truck as it's tipping your hat to the irony. and then the ER as in Gord, the voice of God. It's perfect.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad you got it. A lot of people look at it and they're not quite sure what to make of it. I appreciate that you got all the layers. You know, it's funny. I haven't released this episode yet. I did a roundtable discussion for these guys, these girls actually in Texas. They're the sort of managers of this thing called the Greater Houston Trucking Association. And they reached out to myself and some of my associates to host an info session for their membership because a lot of these autonomous trucks are, being workshopped and engineered and tested in Texas, especially Interstate 45 between Houston and Dallas. Anyway, as we got the show rolling, I was made aware of the fact that if you use the term driverless, more people will pay attention. There's just a sort of segment of the trucking industry of truck drivers who do not understand what the term autonomous means,
Hmm.
which is, um, I mean,
Right.
I think many things about this, but I'm going to keep that to myself. However, it's just interesting that like basically they were saying if you use the term driverless, you'll get more attention and more people understand what you're saying. If you use the term autonomous, all the nerds get it, but a lot of the drivers don't.
Yeah. 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 It's, the semantics matter as far as impact. So you'll have to do some focus groups on that, I guess.
I guess. Well, I like to think that my podcast is a long running focus group, which I do not get a terrible amount of feedback from, but that's okay. Um, I do get fan mail occasionally, and for I average one piece of fan mail for about every 4 to 5 shows. That's fine. I'm happy to get it, but you know I started this thing to be able to legitimate my requests to talk to certain academics and players in the industry, and then sort of relay the discussion to my fellow drivers. That's why it's audio only, it's not video. It's meant to be listened to going down the road. But
Right. Same with my book. I wrote the book, in with a audiobook in mind for
so like,
drivers because we're drivers.
right, so it's sort of conversational tone.
Hmm.
Maybe I should can I download the audiobook somewhere?
Yeah, Audible is the most convenient. If you want snippets on X, I posted it, I pinned it,
Right.
but Audible's the most convenient. It's not on iTunes because Amazon. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about the publishing world or whatever. I used to have an Audible membership when I was still doing long haul stuff back in the day, but I may have to renew it. It's funny. I thought when I stopped doing my log hauling job and not working 14 hours a day, I would have all this extra time. And it's amazing when people find out that you're available, they fill your time in for you in a hurry.
Yeah,
Um,
you got to
uh,
guard it. You got to
yeah,
guard it with your life, man.
yeah, no, because it's like, oh, hey, you're not doing anything. I have this job for you to do for me. Oh, this person over here needs this done. Oh, hey, babe, I guess you're on groceries this week.
Right.
It gets filled in, and then I've also have all these like little writing gigs, so which I'm procrastinating on heavily today. But that's all right. I'm procrastinating about it with you.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah, there's these spaces, these trucker spaces all the time, but I'm not, like the whole lone wolf thing. Like I don't like talking to people very much, and most people are boring, and it's like a hen house. I don't want to go in a hen house, but Gord is a dangerous man, and I'll talk to him any day.
Oh wow, thanks. I'll take that as a compliment. Right. So you're in Wisconsin with this young lady you met in DC. You're managing real estate. It becomes a burden, a bigger piece of the cookie to chew off than you thought it was going to be. Then what happens?
I got divorced. Um,
Oh, bummer. Sorry to hear that.
the the owner of this company who inherited it from his father was making unethical decisions in my mind, and I was inches away from going to jail, and I quit. So I got divorced, quit this job. I joined a competitor that saw, I think, how the vice president saw my acumen in that industry and fired me. It was like the first time I was ever fired. And so I I went to trucking school. I thanks to Millis, Millis, they have a trucking school in Wisconsin,
Yes,
and I
they
became a
do.
trucker. What's
Yeah,
that?
yes, they do. And they were, I think they were part of a news item that myself and a bunch of other FreightX people criticized quite heavily last year. I think Millis was part of this group of three or four trucking companies that had this like one school, and they were seeking some kind of regulatory change to allow the minimum experience requirement to be a certified trainer. I don't know if it was in the state of Wisconsin or they were bugging the feds.
Hmm.
And they said, we don't have enough trainers to make new drivers, so we need to, you know, debase the experience requirements. But they like tried to dress it all up and say, well, we have this vetting process, and like, they were basically trying to make it sound like it's going to be safe anyways. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
And I savaged them in a piece on my Substack, and a bunch of other people did. And I think the Millis people might have been involved in that.
that wouldn't surprise me. I luckily had a great instructor who was a former truck driver, but yeah, Millis is a mega carrier. They got the Anheuser-Busch contract, and I did the over the road forced dispatch for a little bit, and I was like, fuck this. Like everybody does, except for, I did something about it because I've done something about whatever my entire life. Nothing stopped me. So I quit. I had the trap training repayment agreement program or whatever. So I quit, and they put all this thousands of dollars on my credit report. But I quit to go regional, at a quick pace. I expedited the career of a trucker. I was not OTR forced dispatch with Millis for too long. I quit and started hauling. I was a company driver for an owner operator that hauled Chevron oil from the Louisville, Kentucky port up to Green Bay, back and forth like 3 times a week.
Right. In a tanker, or was it all packaged in a van?
Yeah, in a tanker, and it was
Awesome.
clear. So I'd clean it out with a load of diesel and then go down there and get this clear oil. And there's so much manufacturing in Wisconsin. There's all these different kinds of manufacturing oils. There's hydraulic oils, but there's also quenching oils. There's all kinds of oils. And
Yeah, and then
this port,
you get your cutting lubes and stuff from machines, and grinder oils and lathe oils and lubes, and yeah, there's all kinds of stuff.
exactly. And with that kind of getting into that industry, I then left that because I wanted to be local, and I drove for the Teamsters, and there was a local oil delivery, and we deliver pretty much the same kind of oil to, but we'd pump them in the actual tank in the facilities. And I did that with the Teamsters for a few years, and that was fine and dandy, but it was, you know, you're you're stuck. And I also was not making the best choices, and I left to get into sales, and I sold insurance, and I sold Porsches and Mercedes Benz for a few years. And then I had that same soul rot that middle management got me into that divorce, and my that sales started to eat away at me, and I needed something more pure to save my soul. And that was trucking, but I needed a gift from God to get me there. I needed something to clean my thoughts because I was so just confused with life and I couldn't quite figure it out. And Jordan Peterson,
Yes, sir.
well, he was telling. So I'm in St. Louis selling Porsches at Porsche St. Louis. It doesn't really matter how I got there. And I'm listening to the Jordan Peterson talking on his podcast. I don't know, maybe he was on Joe Rogan, so I don't know what he was. And he's talking about his daughter, Michaela, fixing her autoimmune disease, her rheumatoid arthritis and her ankles and stuff with this diet, where you just eat meat.
Yeah, I heard that. Yep.
And so I went to the grocery store that night and I bought some ground beef and I had I just ate some ground beef for a day, and it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I've never felt better in my entire life. And I quit that job and I moved back to Wisconsin with with no plans, but I was the carnivore diet because completely, and I write about it in a book, kind of, but the carnivore diet combined with trucking is unlocked the secret to uh you know being that fisherman on the beach, just hanging out, living life to its fullest.
Right. Before we go down that road, I want to rewind your story here a little bit. You mentioned doing this lube delivery gig and being a member of the Teamsters. I've never been in a union. I've read a book about Jimmy Hoffa and the Teamsters. I understand that they only represent about 5 to 7% of the trucking industry. And, I've met a couple of them here and there along the way and had quick chats, but I've never got a sense for what that means being a Teamster as recently as you have been. And like, what's your opinion
Mm.
on the union, how it affected your job? Like, what was your feeling being a Teamster when you were?
Well, it's cool. Like in Milwaukee, we got our own hospital, which is cool. It's old as shit, but it's just like there's some weird aura about it. It's like this is a hospital for men. But the deductible is like $5,000. It's insane. Like, I mean, you could go in for normal stuff, but like if you injured yourself off the job or something or got sick or something, the deductible is $5,000. So the health part of it was a non-event. Um, the salary, oh my God, these guys were bickering. There's like some 3-year date coming up, and they are bickering about 25 cent or 50 cent or like, and you'd have to go to these meetings, and I don't know. I with the dues that they take out, the $5,000 deductible, and so I was left to go sell insurance, and I'm like talking to the owner. I'm like, hey man, I'm okay with working part time. Can I just pop in every once in a while? And he's like, I don't know, I'm not sure about that. And then the union rep come up to me and he's like, nobody works part time. That's not a thing. And he's like, so you're pretty much you're done. You're out of here. You're gonna go and sell insurance, and you're not gonna. So it's very inefficient. In all the ways you can be inefficient, the Teamsters are inefficient. But it's kind of fun to get the hat and you get the badge and you go to the hospital. But other than that, it's worthless.
Right.
if not negative.
Right. Okay. Oh, I appreciate the insight. Yeah, one of the things I've found is I have attempted to get part-time trucking jobs around here. None of them unionized, but I face the same thing. They want trucking as a business requires that capacity to be utilized as much as possible, and they're not. They're very focused on having that truck get used absolutely 100% of the available possible time that it can be, and they just don't like it doesn't enter their minds that they could possibly have a roster or a schedule and maybe some part-time people help here and there. They just want everything covered and
Right.
very rigid thinking. I live in a very nice area of upstate New York. I live in the Finger Lakes. There's lots of wineries and um, breweries and food and drink and state parks, and it's a very pretty part of the country. And there's lots of weddings here and wine tours, and there's just all these bus companies. They always advertise for drivers. So I called one of them up one time and I said, "Hey, I'll come drive a tour bus for you or a limousine or whatever, a little one of those small buses that they use for parties of 12 or 15 people." And they said, "Okay, well, what 2 weekends do you want off?" And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, part time means you work Thursday to Saturday, 50 weekends a year, and you get
Hmm.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, and some Thursdays." I'm like,
Huh.
"Okay, how about 26 weekends a year?" "No,
Right.
not worth it. We don't want to talk to you." I said, "I'm not giving you 50 weekends a year. I've got kids and a wife, and my wife works Monday to Friday." And they're like, "We don't care. 50 weeks a year or get lost." Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Wow, thanks. That's some great negotiation you got going on there. And
Yeah.
I found that with there was another trucking company I worked for here. Same thing. They had all these rigid schedules, and I said, why don't I just work for you every other weekend? I'll just cover Saturday and Sunday if somebody wants the day off, you know, 2 weekends
Hmm.
a month, 4 days a month, and I'll just jump in whatever truck and cover your deliveries. And if somebody needs a Saturday or Sunday off, they can have it. Nope, can't do that. Why not? Oh, you're just no, we just don't do that. Like they're just so rigid. Like
Yeah.
it's just beyond. I don't know if it's because of like a cost of insurance thing, or they just can't think outside the box in some way. And so I see. We've all heard about the driver shortage narrative, which is baloney. There's tons of truckers around. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. There's tons of people with CDLs around. A CDL does
Oh,
not a CDL does not a trucker make.
right.
But the rigidity of thinking, the unwillingness to like negotiate, do stuff outside the box, do stuff part time, and I'm like, you guys are your own worst enemies. There's all kinds of people out there that have other life commitments or could help you in some other way that's not being chained to the truck for 70 hours a week. And they don't want to know. And okay, cool. Well, don't complain to me when you say you can't find people. Your rigid way of approaching things is you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. I lucked out coming back into the industry. I went on my sales escapade for a few years, and I didn't want to come back into an industry that was that stiff. But, I lucked out and I found like a 8 truck mom and pop uh tanker, local, 80-mile radius, that was hauling wastewater. I mean, they could you could put in as much work as you wanted, or work as little as you wanted. I really struck gold with that.
Yeah, not the opposite of many such cases. Not very many cases.
Yeah, I don't know if you can. I'm sure you're scanning Craigslist or whatever, but I mean, if you can find a food oriented mom and pop owner operator that might has like eight trucks, maybe you could squeeze in there.
Yeah, the smaller companies are always better, usually in every way. I mean, also being flexible and willing to work with people. They're just better places to work. Best trucking job I ever had was working for a farmer who had like, you know, half a dozen trucks that only worked, seasonally. And
Yeah.
he basically gave me the truck and the trailers in November, and then I went and hauled fuel for his customer. And I came back in April, and basically he didn't want to hear from me. He's like, you know what you're doing? If you need any money, give me a call. I'll send you some money. Otherwise, here's the fuel card. Here's the credit card. You know how to change the oil. There's a place in Edmonton. Go change the oil, grease it, and just keep AFD happy. And I worked my bag off for that guy. He paid me a shit pile of money and left me the f alone. That's the key. Leave me alone. You tell me what you need done. There's the truck. Go do it. That's also a leprechaun. Very, very difficult circumstance to find nowadays.
Yeah. Yep. Almost impossible.
Right. So where are you working now?
Well, I kind of so this year is shitty. You know, I got to this small wastewater tanker and I saved up enough money while I was doing that to renovate a house and get a rental house. And so with my company driver salary and remodeling this house and getting a little rental income, I took the leap of faith into becoming an owner operator. And I jumped into a company called Cloud Trucks. I could None of this could have happened without Cloud Trucks. They are what's called a virtual carrier. There's many weird Silicon Valley startups that we hear about, and some go belly up. Many go belly up, but this company let me uh, buy my own. So I bought a truck, and then I guess technically you're leased onto them, and so you can get your feet wet and kind of figure out like you know your UCR or your plates. Like what the hell is plates? What are you talking about? And like you don't realize how expensive plates are, and then you got IFTA, and there's just all this stuff that you just so when you're a company driver, say you're at level one on uh, paperwork and expenses, and then when you become an owner operator, that is a multiple of 10 instantly. You got 10 times the paperwork, 10 times the expense, and when you do that in the past, you would be forced dispatch still if you're going to lease on to somebody, or there's lots of restrictions somehow. But this Cloud Trucks venture capital Silicon Valley company uh, is no forced dispatched, and so I got on there for a little bit, and then I got my own authority, and I made the next big step, and so I was independent. I only used Cloud Trucks for their um, factoring and their not even their load board. I was using DAT. That but now things have changed. Like everything's gone shitty, and Cloud Trucks doesn't do factoring anymore. And I don't know. I don't know how their other operation is still running. So I'm not vouching for them right now. But I was doing. I had my own trailer for a little bit, but my trailer lease, the market is just going so bad that I was like, I'm gonna go power only, and this is all in a day cab. I was like, I'm gonna go power only, and everybody that's listening to this, even though I'm going to say what I'm about to say, uh, you still should read the book and pretend like it's a hardcore truck book. But now I do power only locally for Amazon Freight. God bless America. You wouldn't believe this. This year's been a little tougher, but last year I was doing local day cab LTL. It was so fun. I would pull up next to Saya, next to Old Dominion, next to XPO with my big 53-foot trailer and picking up little packages here and packages there. And I would do these LTL tours around Chicago. Oh my God, it was a blast. And as soon as the market picks up again, I'm going to go back into that. But, right now, I guess I'm just doing power only, Amazon to Amazon, which is still cool.
Right. So you're basically contracting directly to Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they have their own spot market. And this week, so things have gotten so bad this week that I had to sign or this year that I've had to sign a contract. And so I'm this week and not next week, but the week after that, I will have to do the tour that they say for a few days because the accessorials pay great. It's not what you see on the board because they pay these accessorials that you have to add for. They pay tolls, there's a fuel accessorial. So it's a lot more than that. But whenever things get a little better this year, which I know they are, at least by August, then I'm going to go back to pure spot Amazon. And it's great. It's like you wake up, you're like, I feel like working. So you get on the spot market and you go move some trailers around. It's great.
Huh, interesting. Because I've heard many different things about Amazon, like in total as a company. Never mind, contractors or people working at the sorting facilities. I've seen the videos on FreightX and LinkedIn of the bad behavior of some people with a no-name truck, but with a big old Amazon trailer. And I'm never quite sure what to make of it all, right? Because all the stuff gets moved. You order something on Amazon, it shows up when they say it's going to show up for the most part. Clearly, they're making things work, and they have to be making some people happy and keep coming back to work in order to do that. So it can't be all bad.
Yeah, the majority is bad. The majority is illegal immigrants, like from Africa. I'm talking Somalia. I've been to Somalia. I know what their heads look like. These are not Mexicans. These are not African Americans. These are people from halfway across the world that are in these trucks, screwing up the lounges. It's just like I can't believe, and that's the majority. So me and my book, it's a diamond in the rough, and you're not going to find it, and you can't generalize it. But if we are going to generalize, it's horrible.
Really?
Yeah. So these all these illegal immigrants that are coming up into the country, I think are going straight into trucks because, bro, these people can't speak a lick of English. It's just crazy, man.
Wow, I'm
But they're
glad
not
you
speaking Spanish.
right. So I post about this somewhat frequently on Twitter, because like a lot of people are afraid of discussing anything to do with immigration or race or people in those terms, because wokeism, or it's considered politically incorrect. And then there's a lot of like boomers in the trucking business that grew up with the whole Reagan, anybody can make it and anybody should be allowed to try it out, without realizing the consequences of that or the realities that paradigm presents. And, you know, uh, our friends on the left are always going on about human trafficking and women being used in sex trafficking. There's a really healthy market in trafficking truck drivers, and it doesn't always look like it's bad because a lot of the guys doing it are sort of like, hey, I'll go to America and drive truck. But the problem is that they come here and their visas are either dodgy or they're illegal and they don't have one, or they're working for a company that organized their visa for them, using some kind of shady business. And then those companies hold the visa over their heads, make them work crazy hours, doing things other people don't want to do. They don't get paid enough. They're often driving junk trucks. And I would have thought Amazon of all companies, what given that they're probably fairly top heavy with managers, would have some way of like separating the riffraff out. You know,
Yeah, they have. Yeah, it's getting better fast. I mean, you have to scan your face a lot of times before you right when you go into a facility. Um, so I mean,
what
it's they're getting better fast.
Right. Well, I don't know what the scanning the face does, but I mean like vetting carriers. And I said this on the Lost Freight Therapy main channel on Discord the other day. And I said, freight brokers need to discriminate. And, automatically people get their backs up when they hear the word discrimination. And I don't mean against any particular ethnicity or anything. I don't care. But then I meant that as like you're supposed to be doing your due diligence. Like,
Right.
if we want to help clean up the trucking business and unfortunately a lot of people that don't understand the language end up on Donner Pass getting snowed in or missing exits or just doing dumb stuff on the road because they just don't know what they're doing and they shouldn't have their licenses, and a good way of preventing that can be achieved on the broker side, like when you call a carrier, how long have your drivers worked for you? Where are they from? Are they Americans? Is your company American? Where are you headquartered? Where are you calling us from? Can you confirm all of this stuff? Because there's so many bad actors in the trucking industry in the United States right now who are just foreign hustlers, or they're recent immigrants that have like figured out how to abuse the fellows from the home country, bring them here, and then employ them, treat them like dirt, and and all the value just gets extracted and sent back home. And I don't. A lot of these people don't have long term plans for staying in the U.S. And you're not adding to anything by undercutting all of the locals and then taking your money and sending it home in remittances, and being a menace on the roads when it's you don't have a whole lot of experience and you don't understand the culture and you don't speak or read the same language everybody else is. Never mind the illegality of it all. Whatever, that's just pieces of
So
paper.
illegal. I mean,
Yeah,
they can't read. They can't read it. They can't read the road signs.
right. So I just occasionally I wonder, am I the only person saying this just because I'm brave or stupid, or is it like as bad as I actually believe it to be?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I have noticed it, but believe me, I'm a fairly intelligent, competent person, so I realize the world is huge and I have no idea what's going on. But that little bitty window I have, man, I like the other day I walked into so Amazon is destroying the world in warehouse space. Oh my God, they are the warehouse king. Unbelievable. But they got this new big beast built in Huntley, Illinois, two of them, of course. And I'm like, all right, I get to go into this driver's lounge and sit on a nice clean toilet. That's a big deal to a trucker. And there's piss all over the wall, all over the floor. This building's like 3 days old. And I go in, and then there's this guy right next to the CB that you call in with, and he's won't move by the CB, and he's playing this like it's like a tribal music thing. Like I don't I'm trying to be sensitive, but I'm just explaining what I saw. And he didn't speak any English, and he just looked at me and he was like, with this tribal music was so loud that you couldn't, when I pressed the CB, the people couldn't even hear me. And it was the strangest experience. And I was like, how did this person get here?
Right. Yeah. On the bathroom thing, there's another sort of meme as issue with like driver bathrooms, and there's been a couple of states that have hey, we're gonna force facilities to grant bathroom access to drivers. And sure, you would think that that would be like most people would take that for granted, but they don't realize like how bad some facilities get treated. And this ties into my um, a long running thing I discuss is that, between these indentured servitude agreements where they bring in people from parts of the world that, don't have the same sort of etiquette or manners or cultural affectations we do, and the government gives all kinds of money to truck driving schools to sweep the lumpen proletariat off the street and put them in trucks. And like you keep scraping the bottom of the humanity barrel to put people behind the wheel, you're going to get some folks that, like, basic etiquette and cleanliness are lost on them. And, people that own these facilities and have to provide these, restrooms and stuff, after a while, they probably get sick of cleaning up human filth. And I don't think the answer is to force facilities to let you use their stuff. Although I do get it. You spend all these hours on the road, you race and try and get somewhere on time. You need to go to the bathroom, and then they tell you no, which is pretty anti-human. But at the same token, yeah, the trucking business is not policing itself with who it lets into the business, and there's some pretty gross people out there, and they're ruining the party for everybody else. And I say the solution is take out the trash rather than legislating bathroom access.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like a plan to me. I wrote chapter 3 in the book about using the restroom, and that's just one of the pallet stacks that will make your life as a trucker enjoyable no matter where you are. But yeah, I agree.
I've driven truck in the far north of Canada. I did a few seasons on the ice, drove logging trucks in New Zealand and here, and then spent some time in the outback in Australia. Lots of places where there are no facilities. And, you know, uh, does a truck driver shit in the woods? Yes, he does. Does a truck driver shit in the desert? Yeah, when I was in Australia, I had a shovel on the back and carried my own, bog roll and, kind of wander off into the scrub, dig a hole and get her done. And,
Yeah, it's a skill that you can improve.
right. And,
Being
sometimes,
overweight and unhealthy makes it almost impossible to do.
right. Well, and that's another thing. And shout out to Mike Lombard Trucking, fitness coach, madman, runs marathons, yells at his phone, tells you all about Napoleon. And
You'll love my chapter on exercise.
yeah. So yeah, you got to be fit and you got to stay healthy. It's just gonna make your life easier. And then hey, wow, there's this like nice bushy area over here with lots of trees and nobody around, and well, it's probably better than the bathroom they have for you. So
Yeah, I mean, just imagine that porta potty splash. If it splashes up on you and hits you, you're probably gonna die of AIDS.
oh man, don't get my show canceled. Come on now. All right. So I think we should move the conversation along from the gallows of the average distribution center driver facilities. Pretty bleak. The video that I really piqued my interest. We touched on it before, but the choice between doing and not doing, that agency autonomy, as you said. Um, what else do you have to like say on that, right? To tell people, because there's a lot of folks that want the government to do things and fix things, including myself to a certain extent. There's a lot of people that are annoyed about the sort of state that the industry is in, but you do have some agency as a driver and as an owner operator contractor, whatever your status is. Like, is there anything else you have to speak towards the choosing and not choosing, and where you're at with that?
Sure, yeah, that's to get there is tough. It's a challenge, and only a few will get there. I am I joked about it in the book, and I joke about it on some of my videos, and I created a little logo. I'm going to create a fraternal order that's called the Ancient, Free, and Accepted Truck Driver. It's obviously a tip of the hat to masonry, but there's these life lessons on how to behave accordingly and be successful to reach fulfillment that have been codified in different metaphors like truing the ashlar, the getting a perfect cube stone to put in Solomon's temple. And I'm creating these little lessons that are just kind of stupid, but they come to my mind. And the Eaton one, Eaton, I see the Eaton symbol all the time. It's on my shifter. I look at it, I see it all day long for 15 years. I've seen this shifter and this Eaton symbol. So I was sitting there and I was thinking about making stupid hats. And so I went ahead and made a stupid hat because I'm good at stuff because I have a palette stack, so it's not hard to do. So I got the hat and I'm thinking about these stupid lessons. And the first lesson was um shit, what was the first lesson? I don't know. Anyways, and then the second one was each letter of Eaton. Oh no, no, yeah. So the first one was Eaton is a symbol. It symbolizes the trucking journey. The positive when you talk about graphics or graphic arts, there's the positive elements and then there's the negative element. The negative element is the background. The positive element is your object. So there's three objects. There's three positives. There's an E, there's a T, and there's an N. That's all you can see on the Eaton symbol. That's becoming a trucker, going to trucking school, learning how to shift, la di da. I got a job. I'm a working man. And then you're worked your ass off and you're sad and lonely, whatever. So that's the positive to become a master, to become a member of the ancient, free, and accepted truck drivers. You have to master the negative symbols. It's the A and the O. They're defined by what they don't do. That's agency. That's autonomy. To get there, you have to have a healthy mind, body, and soul. You have to have your finance books in order. You have to acquire an asset. That's your truck. And then you have to get through the dispatch hurdle to where you're self dispatched with a class 8, your own authority. Welcome to the club. You're free.
All right.
And then I also have did you see my I they need to get a whiteboard. I did a little like I was drawing with a Sharpie uh two lessons about uh flight and behavior. Very deep metaphoric lessons that will be included in the AFATD order. Have you seen those?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll send them to you.
AFATD.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anywhere. I mean, I made an X account, but one of these esoteric societies, one of the things they always say is the invisible college. So you can learn this shit, but there's no place to go. So I'm going to create the ancient, free, and accepted truck driver fraternal order, but they're not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to put it on a website. I don't know. Maybe I will, but probably not. But the lessons are eternal. You
Good. You
know,
should you
in
should be the you should be the in-house philosophy guy for this new truckers guild. I have a friend over in the UK named Graham Brown. He does a Substack called The Loriest. You should write that down. It's good stuff.
all right.
He's a way better writer than me.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's how they say truck over there, eh?
right, yeah. So anyway, he has this idea he's working through right now about an international truckers guild to help us, self-enforce who is in and who is out, and keep the trash out, standards up. And it sounds to me like your ideas would gel very well with his.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's interesting that the trucking world is unfathomably huge. And I wrote a book for truck drivers. Um, and I haven't been on Facebook because there's a few reasons, it was the time is the most important commodity and it was taking my attention too much. So I completely left Facebook. But there's so many truckers on Facebook and I try to join some of their groups. After I published the book, I got a Facebook account again and I tried to join some of their groups, but they wouldn't let me post anything because I hadn't been a Facebook member for very long or whatever. But there's so many truck drivers out there that I can't get to and I can't get a message to. And then when you get on X, like there's not many truckers on X. It's more like the mental juggernauts of the industry that aren't drivers, And if they are
or,
drivers,
or, or,
if it
or, or we're retired or semi-retired or working another part of the business.
right, yeah, exactly. So it's kind of hard to get that message out there. But the Loriest fella, yeah, I'd love to connect.
Yeah, he's on Twitter too, at Highway My Way. Yeah, the thing you said about Facebook is true. When I started my Substack about a year and a half ago now, I was encouraged to return to Facebook, a place I quit in 2016, permanently deleted my account.
Amen.
I gave up on social media for a couple of years, didn't bother with it.
Yep.
Anyhow, so I start my Substack. A lot of people like it. It landed me a few interviews with some, fairly big media. I was on, what's that Bloomberg podcast, Odd Lots, a couple times, and you know, yeah, it was good, and things were happening, and so I get a Facebook account, and I'm recommended all these various truckers groups, and I will go and I join all of them, and I try and post my stuff. Hey, drivers, you might like to read this. Let's talk about this issue. And they would just nuke me. They just like either kick me out or nuke my posts.
I had the
Um,
same experience.
and it's
Wow.
like, what's going on here? Like, is if this is how they treat fellow drivers, like, you know, I'm not allowed to offer something that's of relevance to other truckers in this Facebook group run by truckers and for truckers. Wow.
I
What does
think
that
that
remind you of?
that might be why I've kind of um, turned up the troll recently because it's almost like I've given up trying to reach truckers. And so I make these outrageous little vignette videos that's just 1000% trucker that nobody is ever going to get or care about except
Right.
Gord.
No, I mean, I like what you're doing, and it's clear that you're a pretty thoughtful guy, and what little you've shared with me here about your life experience is fascinating. And if I'm ever out your way, I'll have to stop in and say hi. Are you coming to the Mid America Truck Show down in Louisville in a couple weeks?
Yeah, so I wrote a book on freedom and I'm not free. I apologize. 2024 has been just a horrible year for me maintenance wise. I've had $15,000, which is a huge hit for my teeny tiny operation. So I have to do some contracted work that week. I will not be there.
Bummer.
Yeah, Smart Truck Smarter. I'm friends with Truck Smarter. Danny, she said she'd buy me some drinks there. She's hanging out, and then I think Reed said he's doing something with Truck Smarter. But I'm gonna miss it all.
All right. Well, I will have a drink for you. Yeah, the Truck Smarter people reached out to me to write some stuff for them. I'm still waiting to hear back about what topics they'd like me to address. But yeah, I guess I'll see them in person here again real soon. So
I was shocked when they wanted to talk with me. I'm like, and she read my book, and I'm like, okay, because my whole thing is like, you don't need. It's just there's no. I have nothing to sell to the industry because I'm providing knowledge that isn't like a marketable thing. It's very weird.
yeah, no, it's Part of success is just doing things, and even if it's little bizarre videos with your hats, or other cultural mashups with truck and stuff that as you do, or my extremely opinionated Substack. People like stuff, so you never know, and there's no harm in trying and putting it out there.
Yeah. Well, the big dogs on X, they like it. So it's like I don't know. It's just weird. You're so close to people on X. It's insane.
Yeah, and I think the nature of Twitter, it sort of engenders, that kind of conversation, and um, it's it's sort of hard to be fake there, and it's truly democratic in that, like, if your content is good and people like it, they'll follow you around, and they'll chat with you, right? So
Yeah,
it's
and it's just enough people. I am a lone wolf. I'm an asshole. I don't like talking to people, and it's just my personality. And I had a post go viral. So I have my personal X account underneath my name, Ben McCulley. And when I wrote the book, I had Scott Adams and Jack Posobiec, retweeted it, and they were very supportive. I was very thankful for that. But I had
wow.
one post go viral over there. The guy in Colorado that got killed by the feds, um, he posted some memes, and they showed up to his house and they blew him away. Right when Raw News posted that, I went and got some screenshots of his Facebook and I posted it on the Raw News alert, and it got like 3 million hits, and my freaking phone was a nightmare for like 2 weeks. So like, I don't know if going viral is a good thing at all. It's
Oh,
really annoying.
it depends on what for, I guess.
Right, right.
Ah. All right, sir. So, can you just repeat the name of your book, where people can find it, and where they can find you?
Truck driver, read when safe. Uh, you can find the book on Audible. Truck driver, read when safe, or just search read when safe. It's on Amazon. You can just search read when safe on Amazon. I'm actually starting to get the brand read when safe to trend on various SEO. But as far as me, you can leave me alone. If you want to talk to me, call Gord or something. I don't want to talk to anybody else.
All right. Well, Ben, it's been a pleasure chatting. I'm gonna send this to my buddy Andy. I recommend you go follow him on Twitter, at shagbark_hick. And I'm going to let you know when this is live. And I want to thank you for coming. And I hope we get to meet up in real life or have another chat like this soon.
Absolutely. Same here.
All right. Well, as I like to end the show with, way of the road.